or just got an email from my mom back in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where I grew up. Just forward along the email from the synagogue she belongs to, I grew up in, that they're shutting down for the weekend. There's no threat against the synagogue specifically, but local schools in the area are shutting down for the rest of the week out of fear of the fallout of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial going on in the area. The Oh, if you remember August 2020, the shooting of Jake Blake, the riots and unrest that followed, and the shooting of two individuals by Rittenhouse. Now, the specifics of that case are the specifics of that case, and courts have to figure out justly what happened and figure out if punishment is needed and how to all that. That's for the courts. But obviously, we pay attention to these things because they have a lot of symbolic significance to how we see ourselves as a society. That also, of course, is part of why we read the stories in the Torah, because there's symbolism that's present that we read this week in the Torah, read about Yaakov and Esau. We're not reading about them because they happen to be two people who lived a long time ago. They're symbols. They represent something much larger about how we move in the world. Philo, the great philosopher from 100 years ago in Alexandria, thought of all of the Torah as an allegory. And even the Chazal, the rabbis of old, thought of Jacob and Esau as stand-ins for larger groups in history. Jacob and Esau, we'll call them stand-ins for larger groups in history. In this Torah portion, find a way to coexist. They have reason to distrust each other. They have lots of historical grievances. And somebody's been wronged in this relationship. And Jacob, after a night of wrestling, and Esau, seemingly after thinking about this for 20 years, they find a way, maybe not to forgive, but to peacefully coexist. And maybe they don't love each other, but they can live adjacent to each other and engage in common projects. I think that's what we're supposed to carry with us. So I don't know who's guilty and who's innocent in the trial going on in Kenosha. I don't know how it's going to turn out. But I do know that the fact that schools and synagogues have to shut down for fear of unrest, regardless of the verdict, tells us that we have to take a page from Yaakov and Esau. We have to figure out a way to coexist because this is the great project of humanity and of society. Not to make peace with people who you agree with, not to browbeat people into being like me, but to find a way to live with difference. God willing, we'll find a way to do that. God willing, there will be peace on the streets of Kenosha and of all American cities, and we'll all be able to have a Shabbat Shalom and a more just, fair, and peaceful world.